The scale of the movie is very large, and so a lot of the story is told in very dramatic landscapes. And so, you know, like Lord of the Rings in particular, it has that tremendous backdrop in much of the movie.
We were looking through lots of geography books, lots of landscape books from around the world, and one place that came up that looked completely otherworldly and extraordinary was Iceland. I mean, it is an extraordinary country with over very short distances. We had certain logistical problems that Iceland has a restriction that you can't take animals in there, you can't take horses. It's a complete no-no. We looked around Scotland because Scotland was quite attractive to us, and specifically the Isle of Skye. And the Isle of Skye is a very different look to the rest of Scotland. It's like Iceland. It's the same volcanic rock with green moss.
Take one, camera mark.
Please. Seek all you wish, you shall not see it. You will not receive it.
So we've managed, I think, very cleverly to shoot a small amount in Iceland with some plate shots and a fair amount in the Isle of Skye, which will give us what we're calling our Stormhold background look, which is based on Iceland.
Basically, I want each location to be good enough that you just took a snapshot of it and it's a postcard. You know, the Isle of Skye and Wales, and we just picked harsh but beautiful locations.
31-mile-an-hour gusts, going to 40, but Matthew contends it's only 4 miles an hour.
The crane, even though it's nailed down, everyone's been told to stay away from it because it's so windy.
We're staying low to the ground because it's going to get blown off.
Isle of Skye, we had bad weather, and that became a little bit testing.
Freak gust of wind struck, propelling my meter from my hand into a large, deep puddle, of which around here there are many.
It's quite fun when you go all off together. It's like going on an event, literally on your own adventure, and it becomes, I think, a good team spirit evolves.
Gavin worked on some of the Star Wars movies, so it's sort of an idea that he's capable of large scale.
A set like this is probably about 12 weeks from beginning to end, but we've had a bit of a push on because Simon Crane, the stunt coordinator and second unit director, really wants to rehearse in here maybe for a couple of weeks before they shoot, understandably so. So we're really pushing at both ends to get it finished a little bit earlier.
As you come across, it'd be great to really sink down, and
okay,
that's when it would be great to do.
Right. There's a sequence at the end, the kind of denouement fight sequence where I literally rise from the dead and have a massive sword fight while dead.
Ready, and action!
I wanted to have as little sword fighting as possible because I think you've got the Errol Flynn, and then you've got the Gladiator. It's sort of been done to death, and this movie isn't about sword fighting. We tried to make it as realistic as possible. There's no sort of pirouettes or whatever. I don't know enough about sword fighting, but it didn't look like Errol Flynn. It didn't look like Gladiator. It looked like a boy having a fight with a zombie prince. So, you know, the guy's getting stabbed and cut, but not being hurt. So it's pretty cool.
When you're doing a fight scene, in the script it's not that much text, because it really, you can't describe what happens so specifically. So when I read it, you know, it's very hard to gauge what it's going to be and how it's going to work and exactly how serious the beats are. So it really was a discovery as we started filming and as we persevered with it.
3, 2, 1, action! Got it?
It really
really felt like we were shooting a movie, you know, when there were pirates involved. It's such a classic motif and fantasy to escape into, and you know, it was a little peculiar. Occasionally, I'd sort of pinch myself and go, "I'm being dragged across the floor of a pirate ship by Robert De Niro."
Take him to the brig! What the hell did you do?
What did I do? What did you do?
I've never done this much studio work, and I think if you're doing, you know, a lot of green screen, it will feel less epic because you don't need the crowds of people and the massive scenery all the time.
All the technicians that Matt worked with on Lock, Stock, he takes with him, and so it's a sort of growing up process, film-wise, for all of us.
If you've got a good crew, keep using them. I mean, Paramount were at first going, well, you know, you should have a big DP, you know, to get rid of all the people you work with on their cake, because now you're doing the big movie, you want the big crew. But I was like, well, I'd rather have my guys around me that is a proven team, because when I was doing X-Men, I met a few DPs, and I just knew it wouldn't work out, because I am very hands-on and like to get involved with the camera and the storyboarding.
I think as a director, Matthew has a skill that is very hard to find, which is he knows exactly the end game. The process of getting to the end game is always different for different directors, but within Matthew's case, he knows to a T what the end game is, and the movie is benefiting from that knowledge. You can also talk to him in a way where you can say the trade-offs that are involved that some directors might get a little uptight about, but as a producer, he understands the trade-offs that we're facing. Coming from the independent world, there's a speed to which decision-making is often forced on a production, and he has that skill set as well.
What you want from a director when you're an actor is you want him to be your mate behind the camera, and you need him to tell you whether what you're doing is right or wrong, too big, too small, whether it's reading or not, whether you're on the right lines with the character or not. What I've enjoyed about him most of all is the fact that his taste is accurate. So I know that if he tells me to do this, that or the other, I'll do it, because I know that he won't let it pass if he doesn't think it's right. And that's basically what you want from a director.
Okay, let's go again. Do more like you're shaking your head, like... Oh.
It's new school direction that I think he pioneered with probably Guy Ritchie, you know, and it's quite pretty effective, really. It's just as effective as those kind of gushy directors who huddle with you for hours talking about, you know, what your character did last week.
I've worked with him before, which is great, and therefore a lot of the crew are the same, and so it's kind of like, yeah, I feel very at home. I think he's naturally a very good director, and he's good at being in control. I think he knows exactly what he wants, and he co-wrote the script, so therefore is very familiar with the story and you know what's going on.
There are moments where a director is so deeply into his decision-making process, it's very hard to hear anything but what that thing is. And Matthew can hear when you really say to him, Matthew, this is the value of this scene. Here's how you had it. Here's the value of doing it in a less expensive way. We can retain the value and do it in a less expensive way. He's able to recognize the trade-off very quickly.